Hello and welcome to Giant Mess, a super sloppy sports and entertainment podcast that's hosted by Giant Mess. That's me, the real cinch, Neal Lynch. I'm a single dad who loves to talk Giants football, Mets baseball, movies, and TV. Also like to mix in some funny stories and life lessons along the way. On today's episode, we're going to be recapping, reviewing, breaking down, and reveling in the New York Football Giants' 34-17 win over the Philadelphia Eagles in Week 6 of NFL action. And then we'll preview the upcoming Week 7 matchup against the Denver Broncos, who just took down the New York Jets on Sunday morning football over there in London town. So without further ado, let's get started up in here. Woo! We got a little Ric Flair woo. We got a Cam Skattebo woo, where he's just like, wow! He just really tears into it, but what feels better than a Victory Monday? I gotta tell you, Victory Friday feels pretty damn good. Victory Monday, it's like, I gotta go back to work. And yeah, I get to say to all my coworkers, like, hey, look at me, look at us. My team is good. We won. We got the dub. Much needed dub over a divisional rival that we just have not figured out for so long. But Victory Friday, dude? My God, your weekend is exponentially better. There's no anxiety. There's no tension. The gut and the butt are unclenched. You're loosey-goosey, my friend, just like Jackson Dart, as he's scrambling around and making loose plays, as Brian Daboll liked to say in the post-game press conference. So why didn't I put out the pod on Friday? Great question. As you know, I'm unemployed, been unemployed for 15 months, and had a big interview that afternoon. And so I spent the better part of the day preparing for the interview, and it went okay. And then afterwards, I wanted to get you guys a nice little clip. Did I put out a clip? No, I didn't put out a clip. I had some other stuff I had to do Friday night. Thursday night, was basically watching it in bed on the iPad because I had my daughter, and my daughter is not quite there yet with football. I think she's more into baseball than football at this point. She's a menace on the softball field. Her game on Wednesday was 3 lasers in soft pitch. What? Not even off the tee. Didn't even have to use the tee. So, watched in bed on the iPad with the brightness setting as low as it could go. I had the AirPods in as she's, slumbering towards my feet because she's weird like that. She likes to do the head to toe, like grandparents from Willy Wonka type sleeping situation. And so, I was excited, and I had to contain my excitement to not wake up my daughter. So I couldn't do the post game then. Couldn't do the post game. I probably could have done it Friday night, but just was too amped to celebrate. I was in celebration mode. And then Saturday, I regretted celebrating so hard on Friday night. So Saturday was, all right, let's get our act together and start pulling together some really cool stats, some research, some show notes, so I can give you and deliver you the best podcast possible. And here we are. And I think I wanted to also kind of wait and take a look at what the Broncos are. I'm recording this on Sunday afternoon. It's around 2 o'clock Eastern. Broncos beat the Jets in a fairly ugly game. It was a defensive battle, and the Broncos pull out the win. But the Jets, man, you want to talk about a franchise that is going through it, obviously in rebuild mode. But man, I just see a lot of similarities between the Jets and Giants teams over the past few years. But this game, Giants-Eagles, we have not seen a win like this in the Brian Daboll era in a long time. It's our first win on a Thursday night since 2015. Giants' first win on a Thursday night since 2015 when we beat Washington 32-21 in Washington. I believe that's commonly referred to as the Larry Donnell game. Giants had lost 10 consecutive Thursday games, 4 straight losses at night, and 8 straight losses in a row against NFC East teams. So you want to talk about break the chain, break the cycle, change it up, get some momentum going. This is it. This gives me confidence. Very encouraging. Now, it's against an Eagles team that's in a state of flux. They're in a state of disarray. I know I've been hailing and preaching and calling for their downfall for years now, past 2 years, but this, and I think I might have mentioned this in the preview, this Eagles season feels very similar to the 2023 season, the season before Barkley went over, where it's like you're winning games, but the wins are very ugly. They were like 10-1 in 2023, and you had fans calling for Sirianni's head, saying Hurts is a bum, wearing paper bags at a playoff game, which is on their heads at a playoff game, is just like, I can't even imagine doing that. But this for us is a huge ego boost and confidence booster because, listen, coming off that inexplicable loss to the Saints, where we turned the ball over 5 straight times on 5 straight drives, it was like, we had such good vibes coming out of that Chargers win, biggest win at the time. We said one of the biggest wins. You come in the Saints game, you go, oh, you can't lose this game. If you really have changed the culture and you want the players to believe and the fans to believe and the organization to right the ship, you can't lose to the Saints going in on short rest, going in against the Eagles. And sure enough, we did. But it really does seem like if you don't turn the ball over 5 times in a row, you win the game. I know that's I'm stating the obvious. Like, I get it, but it really comes down to, listen, after this win against the Eagles, I still don't believe in our coaching staff. 100% do not believe in our coaching staff. You obviously give them credit. A lot of great play calls on offense. Bowen actually did something on defense this go around to stymie Jalen Hurts. It didn't look great early because there were a lot of gash plays and explosive plays, and they got away with one in the second or third quarter on the deep shot to Devontae Smith. But, so the coaching staff, better performance than what we saw against the Saints. Like, I don't know how you go into the New Orleans and drop that game, but it really does come down to, like, if you just don't turn the ball over and you get turnovers and capitalize on them, odds are you win the game. So Annie Agar, who I appreciate very deeply, Packers fan though, she said losing to the Saints and then dominating the Eagles is actually hilarious. And I guess for anyone who isn't a Giants fan, yes, that is hilarious. What is not funny to Giants fans is the fact that we come into this year, I had the lowest expectations possible for this team coming into this year. I was like, listen, it's exciting to have Neighbors and Dart and Skattebo and Abdul Carter, but they're all rookies. They're young. We need more of the team to step up and play well, right? So lowered expectations, but now you take a look back, like we're 2-4 now. I don't want to get off on too much of a tangent in terms of where we should be and could be, but again, I think it's a knock against the coaching staff. The fact that you thought Russell Wilson's QB1, he is now trending like he should be QB3. Like, we should be seeing Jameis Winston as QB2, and instead we're stuck with Russell Wilson as QB2. And for whatever reason, they have not been able to trade him. Like, the Bengals, I just saw, what's his name, Jay Glazer, on Fox, the NFL Fox on Sunday pregame show, saying that the Bengals were calling around everywhere, all over the place, looking for a quarterback, to get a quarterback, and they ended up with Joe Flacco from a division rival. They traded with the frickin' Browns. So that, to me, indicates that you had you're Joe Schoen, GM Joe Schoen, you got a call from the Bengals for either Russell Wilson or Jameis Winston, and you said no to that trade. If it's Russell Wilson and you said no, I mean, come on, dude. Like, how many strikes can you have against you as a general manager before you move on? I could understand if you get the call on Jameis and you don't want to trade him because you think, like, we have him for another year and we do view him as a valuable asset, but that's where I think there's still this disagreement where the GM front office is not on the same page as the coaching staff, because why is the coaching staff then putting Russell Wilson as QB2? This particular game against the Eagles, this feels like this has to be the end of Russell Wilson as a Giant, and we would be fools not to trade him at the deadline. But maybe this is also a case of the coaching staff saying, we know Russell has played poorly on every snap other than one game, but Winston is not playing. Like, we don't see it in Winston. And we think that Wilson still gives us a better chance than Winston as a backup, which I just disagree with. So this is where this is why I want to move on from this administration. Listen, it's awesome we're winning. My biggest fear is that we're going to go on a friggin' streak, or we're going to win enough games to be in playoff contention, and that's enough for John Mara to say, yeah, let's give him another year. It's like, So, but think about this. Probably could have, should have, would have won the Cowboys game. If Jackson Dart starts against the Chiefs in prime time, do we win that game? You definitely have a better chance. I'll still count that as a loss. So now you're looking at one more win. Definitely should have beat the Saints. I mean, we just killed ourselves there. So that's 2 wins. So you're looking at, we could be 4-2 and tied for the lead, or actually have the lead in the NFC East. And listen, I know it's a lot of ifs, a lot of woulda, coulda, shouldas. I get it. But it's not that far-fetched. It's not like, well, if these 4 plays went right, it's like literally one play in the Dallas game, we win that game. You're looking at, just don't fumble the ball. Like, Scat doesn't fumble that ball for return for the touchdown. Slayton doesn't fumble the ball. Dart, just hold on to the ball. It's like those 3 fumbles. I'm not going to even get into the 2 interceptions because, like, I guess the game was fairly out of reach. To me, it's still within reach against that Saints defense and the way that we're moving the ball. But the 3 fumbles were what really killed us and took points off the board. So, yes, we lost to the winless Saints, but it was us losing versus the Saints winning. And you could say the same thing about that Cowboys game. It was more of us losing defensively, not scheming the way that we should in the right situations. So I put that on us. We lost the game. You don't want to take credit away from Brandon Aubrey. The guy's got a friggin' cannon for a leg. But that's like, if you're the Giants defensive staff, you have to know that this guy can hit it from fucking 70, 75 yards. We could be 4-2 right now, which is just, if you like to say to a Giants fan, even like me, who was the biggest cynic and skeptic and detractor going into the season, and say, we're 4-2 after 6 weeks. Be like, what? And I'll even go far as to say this. The Broncos game is winnable. We going into the season, how many L's did we assign? We're like, oh, there's so many L's. We can't find many wins. NFL's toughest schedule. Now you're looking at this Broncos game in a whole different light. Obviously, to me, the Broncos at this point in the season are better than the Eagles. The Eagles are playing poorly, but they also had some key injuries that we'll get into that, if it's a fully 100% healthy Eagles team. But that said, we were down Neighbors and Slayton, our 2 top wide receivers. So, I'm not going to make excuses for the Eagles, and they're not going to make excuses for us. However, the Broncos team is better than the Eagles and has the best defense that we have faced so far. I'd say the Chiefs and the Chargers are like a close 2A, 2B situation. You can flip-flop there. Maybe the Chargers are better. But the Broncos, to me, other than the Chargers, that's a tough one. I think that it would be Broncos, Chargers are kind of right there neck and neck. And then you have the Chiefs right below them. So but, would love to see how Dart would have handled the Chiefs. But I think he was able to manage the game against the Chargers pretty well. And, the Eagles defense, even though, they're not like top 5 to top 10, even like above average in most categories, they through 5 weeks were able to limit the damage. They weren't giving up the big plays, or, the red zone percentage was pretty top notch. So yeah, as Matt at ML Diffley on X said, only the Giants can beat an undefeated team, lose to an 0-4 team, and blow out the defending Super Bowl champions within an 11-day span. Yes, only the Giants. And I don't want to rain on anyone's parade, dude. I do not. I want us to embrace the win, and because it feels good. It's very rare for us. I want to keep the positivity going. I am going to say though that like you have to assign a huge chunk of credit for this win to the energy and the enthusiasm that Jackson Dart and Cam Skattebo provide to this team. The huge boost and lift that they're giving to the energy and enthusiasm. You can't quite measure it. It's an untangible, quote unquote, intangible. But my God, you can just see it affects, and Brian Burns has said as much in his quote, which we'll get to, that it's infectious, it's contagious. People see it and they can't help but get wrapped up in it and want to, keep that going. Now we're fueled. Our win is fueled by this energy and enthusiasm, not by the coaching staff. So it's like once you don't, hopefully I'm not making a good point here. I'm not articulating it well, but hopefully you can get to where I'm going and understand what I'm saying. That there's a time where that energy and enthusiasm and the rookies pumping life into the team, that can then how is the team going to perform when that's not there? And that's where it's really dependent on the coaching staff, and that's where I don't have faith and confidence. So that's my long-winded way of saying this is good. I appreciate this, and I'm very grateful for the success that we're having. It's not because of the coaching. It's mostly not because of the coaching staff. It is become because of the influence that Jackson Dart and Cam Skattebo have on this team. And so what do you do when Cam's having a bad game or Jackson's not seeing the field? Like, can you still win games that way? That's going to fall on the coaching staff, and that's where my confidence wavers. So yeah, Neal, way to bring it down. But Max Delente from Barstool Sports, he's a producer on Part of My Take. Huge Philly sports guy. Eagles, Flyers, Phillies, Sixers. He posted on X, got to be the worst sports day in Philadelphia history. And yeah, I mean, this is, September, October. Those are the 2 months where you get to see like the best day in insert city sports history or the worst day in sports history. I experienced one of my better sports days last October when, the Giants blocked the field goal to clinch the win against the Seahawks in Seattle, and the Mets ended up winning, I believe it was in the NLDS against the Phillies. It was just like an amazing sports day that was then followed up the next week with one of the worst sports day in New York sports history. So yeah, Phillies, Dodgers. Phillies are playing in LA. They actually took one in best of 5. They're down 2-0. They ended up routing the Dodgers in game 3 on the power of Kyle Schwarber's baton. And then they're all tied up. It's 11th inning. Bases juiced. Orion Kirkering gets a ground ball hit back to him and just airmails it over the catcher, which that's hard to do. Like you just threw an accurate pitch to the catcher, it comes back to you, and then you airmail it over the catcher. And so the Dodgers win and go to the NLCS. So that's what makes the win that day that much sweeter, is like to have that happen was so cool. License plate guy on X said, has to be one of the best Giants wins, and I can't tell you how long. And I agree, for sure. One of the best wins. So we called the Chargers game one of the biggest wins, and it's contextually, it's because of the narratives going into it. Jackson Dart's first start, rookie quarterback, how is he going to respond? We're coming off a very lackluster loss. We're 0-3, they're 3-0. So that was one of the biggest wins in terms of the odds are stacked against you. You lose Malik Neighbors during the game, but your defense comes up big. Your offense holds on, is not making mistakes, and you play a close game against a really good team that probably before all the injuries was going to go to the playoffs. This is one of the best all-around wins that the Giants have had in the Brian Daboll era. Charlotte Carroll from The Athletic, I think she's colleagues with Dan Duggan, said biggest Giants win since 2022 playoffs? Woo. It's a pretty momentous win any way you slice it. Biggest, best, whatever superlative you want to throw on it. Yes, it's one of the biggest wins. It's one of the best wins the Giants have had considering our history against the Eagles. I mean, we've lost so many games over the past 2 decades to them. And, even the last win that we had when it was January of 24, end of the 2023 regular season, it's like the Eagles were like, we'll play our starters. Hopefully we can get out to a big lead and pull them so we can improve our seeding or whatever. And then once they ran into some pretty stiff competition from the Giants defense, who wanted to spoil any kind of higher seeding for Philadelphia, they pulled their starters. So we got like a half of football against their starters. That were they trying that hard? I don't know, maybe not. That one, it's like a good win, and it ultimately it made me think that we were on to something for the 2024 season. It's like, well, we were so close in so many games in 2023, and if the Bills game and this game and so many games where it was close, and we fell short because of injuries, not having Saquon for a stretch, not having Andrew Thomas, our offensive line decimated, giving up tons of sacks, DJ going down, and even Tyrod Taylor going down. So it's like we had a lot of injuries, and yet still finished 6-11, and it's like almost probably had a good chance of going 500. So it's like it gave me so much optimism for 2024, and obviously that all went out the window. Week 1, we got shit on by the Vikings at home in those god-awful uniforms. So biggest, best win since 22, since that wild card game against the Vikings, where, I mean, that was the game where, Daniel Jones convinced the world, the Giants fan base, that he should be, our franchise quarterback and get that extension. You had Giants MetLife Stadium going nuts during that huge blowout win against the Colts to locked in a playoff berth where, I don't know, I want to say there were MVP chants maybe for Daniel Jones. And, to go from, one of the biggest, one of the best wins in the Brian Daboll era. In terms of expected points contributed, breaking it down by unit, I mean, our pass offense and our rush offense, our offense as a whole, it's just, it's something that we have not really seen before. I think about what our offense looked like with Eli Manning. He's obviously not a very mobile quarterback. He's not scrambling and picking up a lot of yards with his feet, but great arm, highly accurate, can throw the deep ball, and typically is fairly smart with the ball, not turning it over. And then you had Daniel Jones, where the offense was like, when it was most successful, it's utilizing his legs. A lot of, there's some RPOs in there, some designed runs, a lot of play action. That's where he sees his greatest success is in play action. There were very few games where it's explosive and we're putting up a ton of points, right? It was always like, well, we're methodical, moving the ball, and then when we get in the red zone, especially in 2022, we're punching it in. So you're kind of seeing hints of that in this 2025 offense. But in terms of what Jackson Dart brings, I would say he's more elusive than Daniel Jones. I don't know if he's as fast as Daniel Jones, but man, he's got some moves, dude. I know we all called Daniel Jones Vanilla Vic, but let's be honest, he was not. I mean, have you watched Michael Vick highlights? I know he's not the most popular guy in the dog lover community, of which I am a part of, card-carrying member. But Vic, and Lamar Jackson, like comparing Daniel Jones to Lamar Jackson is also a bit like, well, I don't know. Seeing how Jackson runs, he's just got way sharper, quicker cuts and is more agile. And hopefully the turf monster doesn't take him down and end his season like it ended Malik Neighbors' season. Our rush defense also contributed some points here and there. Barkley rips off, 31 yards on his first 2 carries and then is mostly held in check for the rest of the game. it is still wild to me that the Eagles would abandon the run as early as they did. Once you get down 34-17, okay, I understand. 27-17, maybe you start to deviate from the game plan, but Barkley didn't do them any favors with how he was running the ball when given the opportunity. I mean, there were a couple runs where it's just like, huh? Like you can beat that dude. I think it was Kayvon or someone on the edge. I think it was Kayvon. You don't think you can beat Kayvon to the edge? You don't think you can outrun him to the sideline? And there's, the Giants plug up the hole, and it's like, Saquon, just barrel forward, dude. You're so strong. You're so strong. And you look, I mean, Saquon is bigger than Cam Skattebo. He's probably stronger. Any metric you want to do physically, Saquon is at a higher level than Cam Skattebo. I don't think that's an argument. But it goes back to what, and they mentioned this in the Saquon doc, it goes back to what happened, what Tiki said about Saquon. He is a big back that plays like a small back. Tiki was somewhat undersized, 5'10", 200. Tiki was viewed when he was drafted as a third down back, kick returner, punt returner. At least that's how he was used in his first 3 years. And then 2000 comes along, and we draft Ron Dane, and all of a sudden he's in a platoon with Dane. But you can see that Tiki's just more elusive, can make guys miss, and is more visionary than Ron Dane, where Ron Dane would just run forward and fall down. So I agree with Tiki. How many times have we seen, we've only seen him use his power on a very scant amount of plays. Like, it was that the 2-point conversion against the Titans, where he's powering most running backs probably get stopped there, but he powers through it. But you can't, you start to think back and you're like, how many games did we see where it's like he had the opportunity to showcase his power to inflict pain or to inflict punishment on the defender, that's the would-be tackler, and instead he opts for something like a spin move or a juke or something that affecting. It's like, Saquon, dude, you're so strong. Just barrel through the good guy. You barrel through, you're gonna get a yard or two plus. So, and you can see it. This was like, they interviewed Cam Skattebo after the game and said, oh, Cam versus Saquon, and he said the right thing and said, no, this is Giants versus the Eagles. We're not talking about. But as a fan, I will talk about it. Cam Skattebo is doing what we thought Saquon Barkley could do. Where he's just attacking defenders and putting them on their ass and hitting them right in the jaw and sticking his face mask in their chest. And it's just like, you do that enough times, you wear the defense down and they don't want to tackle you. I mean, it's similar to what Derrick Henry has been able to achieve. It's like, dude, if the Ravens, or when he was on the Titans, when they would get up and get a lead in the second half or going into the fourth quarter, they would just pound Derrick Henry and wear down the defense, and the defense would eventually submit and give up. And that's what happened towards the end of this game. And that was the formula in 2022 for the Giants, was get a lead, and then, Saquon, we're going to feed him the ball and try and get him the ball in the first half. And you wouldn't see a lot of great success in that area in the first half, but you just keep at it, and since you have the lead, it affords you the opportunity to keep doing that, and then the defense just cracks and they fall apart because they can't do it anymore. And that's when Saquon would take off, and you'd see the chunk or bulk of his yardage would come in that fourth quarter, in that second half, when they have the lead and they're trying to put the game away. That's what you saw with Cam Skattebo in the fourth quarter of this game, where I think the majority of his yards came on that one drive to seal the game. When we got the ball with 6 minutes left or 5 minutes left, or how many minutes we had left after the punch out by Belton on A.J. Dillon, let's just feed Cam Skattebo. Cam scat right, scat's middle, scat left. And I think he had 8 carries for 40 some odd yards on that drive alone. So very impressed by the rush defense. The ability, because it's not like it's just Saquon. You have to take Jalen Hurts into consideration. And I don't think that Jalen Hurts really hurt us running the ball, especially if you don't count the tush pushes. And then our kick return game, dude. I love our kick return game. Gunnar Olszewski people forget that he was like, I think he was an all-pro with the Patriots at one point as a returner, and it feels like he's at that level this year. I mean, he's just setting us up in great field position, great starting position almost every game. And it's not just kick returns, it's also punt returns, but I think the Eagles did a phenomenal job on punt coverage and limiting the damage there. I mean, they really pinned him in and cornered him in. I mean, he was catching a lot of punts like right by the sideline and couldn't do much, not a lot of wiggle room there. But in terms of kick returns, huge. So very impressed there. Pass defense, first half, not great. I feel like it was just like Dallas Goedert was just crushing us all over the field. Looks like there was a little bit of an adjustment. It's not like we had like a crazy good pass rush. There were plenty of times you're watching the game, Hurts is just standing back there and just no one's open. And I didn't realize this when I put together the preview, but apparently the Giants had run the most man coverage of any NFL team through 5 weeks. And I am more of a proponent of man coverage than I am zone, because I've just seen too many Giants defenses that play zone and it's just like it feels too easy. Like guys are just like sitting down in a pocket and that's an easy completion. We're not contesting. There's no chance to defend the pass. So interesting to know that Bowen made the call to change to a zone defense, and that you can see that really impacted how Hurts surveyed the field. It's like there was not a lot of confidence there in making a throw. So kudos to Bowen for making that change and that shift. But the fact that, like, I think Brian Daboll said that he told Bowen to be more aggressive. It's like, we're in week 6 and now you're telling him to be aggressive. Again, I don't want to be a negative Nancy, okay, and nitpick, but Jesus, dude, these coaching staff is just so. Why you? Okay, so you saw how not being aggressive killed you in the Dallas game and in the Washington game in weeks 1 and 2. What? Why weren't you? Okay. It took you 5 weeks to come around and tell Bowen, hey, be more aggressive. Be aggressive. Be more aggressive. Like, okay. But it paid off, And I think the reason why you're seeing the pass defense not play well through the first 5 weeks and 5.5 weeks, because the second half they really were, other than one play, were pretty locked down, is that I think it was like we're playing like a soft man coverage. It's not this bump and run press coverage that we got to see a little bit more of with Wink, where like Wink's blitzing, but it's, complementing the blitz is Banks playing up and jamming on the line of scrimmage or whoever. You're just not seeing a lot of that through the first 5 weeks. You're playing off man coverage, and it's like you're giving the receivers free release. You're giving them the opportunity to get a head of steam, right? They can get some speed going. And so they have the advantage right off the bat. If they're running, getting to full speed as you're in your back pedal, you're going to get beat 9 times out of 10. So I think if you're going to call man coverage, let's play a little bit tighter. Let's not play as soft. We talked about this last week after the Saints game, right? You're scheming, and you're designing your defensive game plan around the idea that you have an elite secondary and a poor defensive line. And it needs to be the other way around, right? That's the clip I put out, because the defense has been underperforming. On paper, we should be a top 5, top 10 defense, and we're currently not there. But why aren't you like you are hoping and praying that the pass rush can get to the quarterback before he can read man coverage, but you're not playing tight man coverage, you're playing soft man coverage, so that makes it makes it easier for the quarterback. So I guess zone, is the way to go, as long as you're not playing this really soft zone. I don't know, just be more aggressive, dude. That's the takeaway there. So we had more first downs than the Eagles. We had 172 rushing yards and 4 touchdowns. Holy shit. And we only allowed 73 yards on the ground defensively. We only allowed 2 sacks for a yard, and that's a testament to Jackson Dart not running into sacks, but also if you're going to get sacked, it's not a case of where, you have a 5-step drop and you're getting sacked at the 5 steps. It's like he's at least there's enough room and space for him to get some yardage back on the sack. We sacked Hurts 3 times for 17 yards. Burns had 2, and Darius Muasau got his first career sack after Carl Banks really took him to task on that one, the Rashid Shaheed long touchdown. Everyone was criticizing Tyler Nubin for that long pass touchdown, but it's because Muasau was supposed to bump or check, just get in Rashid Shaheed's way and slow him down off the line so that Nubin can at least compensate, and I guess he didn't do that. So I guess a pretty decent bounce back game for Muasau. We did force the fumble and get it. Dane Belton with the punch out. That's something that we just have not seen from this Giants defense in the majority of games, if not all games. Like, let's punch the ball out, dude. Go for the ball. When you see, there have been opportunities where the runner's giving you that chance to punch it out, and we just haven't took it. We're up by 17, so that just really put the game out of reach once we got that turnover. And then Jalen Hurts threw his first interception of the season, and he had one hell of a stretch there where he's just not turned the ball over on a pick. Cordell Flott. Whoa, dude. Whoa. The progress that he has made has been unbelievable. I mean, this is a guy that was kind of seeing the field here and there, but no one honestly thought that he could be like an every down CB2 or CB1. And at this point, he is your CB1. I mean, I know Paulson Adebo has the big contract and is the top free agent, but Flott's been playing better than Adebo. Adebo is just getting called for penalties left and right. Really bad defensive pass interference, holding, not picking the ball off, no passes defended. So Cordell Flott, though, I mean, to cut under that pattern and make a really good hands interception. It's not like he caught it in the chest or in the body, and it was contested. I think that was Jahan Dotson was the target on that, and Dotson's like kind of, he's got his hands up and he's fiddling, and you can see the ball move, and he secures it. And if it weren't for Saquon Barkley, who, again, everyone told me lost a step, and yet he catches Cordell Flott down the sideline after a big return. So that was huge. And even on that play, Hurts is getting criticized like crazy for having A.J. Brown wide open in the middle of the field, because I believe it was zero coverage. This is an instance where it was zero coverage, tight man, press, alignment. You only had one guy in the middle, and A.J. Brown beat him, and Hurts just wasn't looking that way for whatever reason. So, and that could be just a case of like the Giants actually disguising their coverages. Bowen was criticized and was called out by Spencer Rattler going into the Saints game for not doing a whole hell of a lot on the defensive side of the ball to make you question what you're seeing. And that changed in week 6 against Philadelphia. So glad that he's learned his lesson 6 weeks into the season. Hopefully we can continue that. But we talked about like 3rd down conversion, 4th down conversion, and red zone conversion. And the Eagles defense was 10th in 3rd down conversion, 3rd and 4th down conversion, and 3rd in red zone conversion heading into this game. And whoa, Nelly, as Keith Jackson would like to say, the broadcaster, white dude, not the former Eagles tight end. We were 11 of 16 on 3rd down. We did not attempt a 4th down play, and we scored on all 3 trips to the red zone. You can't ask for anything better than that, and that's where Jackson Dart is making his money and making the biggest impact, is on 3rd down and in the red zone. I mean, we're scoring touchdowns in the red zone. What? It's just not, it's shocking. It's just shocking to see touchdowns in the red zone. We're so used to stalling in the red zone and having, Russell Wilson throw it into the stands on 4 straight attempts. So it's like my God, what a breath of fresh air, and just has rejuvenated the offense. So, Daboll, we need better quarterback play. Yeah, you do, and you're getting it. And so you can see why he's so in lust with Jackson Dart. It's getting creepy, dude. I mean, it's been creepy, and now it's getting to a level where it's like this feels criminal. The kind of affection and obsession and infatuation that Brian Daboll has with Jackson Dart. It's a whole nother level that I have never seen with a quarterback and a coach. I've never seen this. Like maybe with like the parent-child relationship that exists just across all of humanity, but like typically you see the quarterback who's playing to get the coach's approval. I think about Phil Simms and Bill Parcells, and like Parcells and Simms butted heads all the time. Like Parcells benched him and thought he was, a waste, and Simms comes out to prove him wrong, and they're at each other's throats, and like different type of dynamic with Eli and Tom Coughlin. Like Eli kind of did view him as a dad, but Tom Coughlin had that kind of reserved dad father figure type thing. This is like, it is full bromance softcore porn. Like it's just full, like it's just wildly unprecedented in terms of the level of passion and emotion that Brian Daboll has for Jackson Dart. And it's like at the same time it's understandable. I mean, Jackson Dart is like the things that he's done for the team and the organization in just 3 starts is like, we really haven't seen anything like this from a rookie quarterback in their first 3 starts for the Giants. I mean, go back through the numbers. Eli was not great his rookie year. Daniel had a good first game and then was kind of meh, a lot of turnovers over the next couple games. Like this is like, I don't know that we've seen a Giants rookie quarterback do this in franchise history. That's 100+ years. So it is something very special. And again, it goes back to third down and in the red zone, finding a way to convert, finding a way to punch it in. Meanwhile, the Eagles offense was 1 for 9 on third downs, which is huge. And they were 2 for 2 on fourth down. And that's the tush push coming into play. Time of possession was about even, but I thought we did a fairly good job of keeping Hurts and that offense off the field with some sustained drives. In terms of the Giants offense versus the Eagles defense, from the preview, I said that our offense had the 3rd highest turnover percentage, and that's mostly bolstered and because of that horrific showing against the Saints. 0 turnovers in this game. And it's not like there wasn't any close calls that I can recall. It's not like Dart put the ball in harm's way. He held on to the ball. His accuracy, I know that Daniel Jones got the nickname Danny Dimes because he could throw on a dime. Very accurate. That was something that, you couldn't argue for the majority of his time with the Giants. He was deadly accurate. And then he just kind of shied away from throwing the deep ball and instead erred on the more conservative side and would check down. Wouldn't take that big shot if it is contested. Dart is willing to take the contested throw, a lot of contested throws. He's willing to throw when a guy is covered and there is no separation. Daniel did it early on in his career, not so much towards the end, especially down the field. Dart is doing that, and I hope that he continues to do that. But like every pass is a spiral. I know that sounds like so juvenile, but like every pass, there's no wobbling. I watched a little bit of Arch Manning against Oklahoma in the Red River rivalry thing. And it was like a simple, and understandably, it's a quick pass out of shotgun. It's a bubble screen to the receiver, and so you can't normally get a great grip on it. But like it just came out like absolute wounded duck. Eli had plenty of wounded ducks over the course of his career with the Giants. We have not seen wounded ducks from Jackson Dart. It's kind of like Daniel Jones also threw a really great ball in terms of spiral, not wobbly. Dart takes it to another level. Like every pass is just so accurate and so tight and so catchable. It's crazy. And even with him throwing these contested passes where not separation. It's like there's no real threat of an interception. The 2 interceptions he had last week against the Saints, the previous week against the Saints, one's an arm punt, and right there, I think he's hoping that Hyatt does more than he did. The in cut to Bo Collins that Kool-Aid picks off, I believe it was Kool-Aid. Great play by Kool-Aid, but like Bo Collins didn't put up much of an effort on that, stopped running. So it's like, as long as you get wide receivers that are willing to give their all and make an attempt, more times than not, you're going to have a positive rather than a negative. It's a net positive. The Eagles defense had allowed the ninth highest rushing yards per attempt and the fifth most first down by rush. We for sure were able to exploit that. You look at the expected points contributed by the Eagles' rush defense, minus 11.55, and their pass defense was even worse. So, it certainly helped that they didn't have Jalen Carter. He was ruled out. It definitely helped to have Quinyon Mitchell leave the game with a hammy and not return. So, and we picked on Keely Ringo for most of the game, which I thought was smart. Eagles D was 21st in scoring percentage and 19th in turnover percentage. So it's like they don't force a ton of turnovers, and it seems like you can score on them. This is not the vaunted defense from last season. This is a different defense. They allowed a high average depth of target, and I think Dart understood that and would take a lot of shots down the field, because in that Chargers win, he wasn't really going down the field a ton. And of course, the one that we all remember is the deep shot to Neighbors where Neighbors got hurt. He kind of opened it up a little bit more against the Saints. Should have had a big down the field completion to Slayton twice. One, Slayton drops it. The other, he underthrows it. This one, we got to see him really start to take more shots down the field. More than 10 yards, more than 20 yards. The Eagles did not apply a ton of pressure. And when they did, it was the kind of pressure where you can escape. That's where we talked about pressures last week that like, oh, the Giants are generating a lot of pressure. And it's like, but what kind of pressure is it? Is the kind of pressure where you're allowing there to be a lane for the quarterback to take off and scramble and pick up big yards? Or is it the kind of pressure where you're collapsing the pocket and you're suffocating the quarterback? They're not allowed to move anywhere. They can't move anywhere. And I think that's what the difference was here, is the Eagles are getting pressure, but like I think it was Bob Papa and Carl Banks said, it's not your Eagles edge rusher is beating Andrew Thomas around the corner untouched and causing, that kind of disruption that quickly. They would get pressure, but Dart was able to had the ability to move within the pocket, maneuver, keep his head up, keep his eyes down the field, and find an open guy or see a ton of territory in front of him and take off. And, activating little Jordan Humphrey from the practice squad. Again, another knock on the coaching staff. I don't want to be negative in this episode because this is the best I've felt about the Giants in a long, long time. But holy shit, man. Seeing what little Jordan Humphrey was able to do for you in this game against the Eagles. Now, again, secondary for the Eagles banged up, not exactly where they were last year, but he's a huge body, 7th-year guy. So he has way more experience than Jalen Hyatt and Bo Collins. He's got the size advantage. And he had such a great rapport, as mentioned on the broadcast, with Jackson Dart, because they weren't running with the ones when training camp was happening and through the first couple of weeks. They were the backups. And so Dart has a better feel for little Jordan Humphrey. And seeing the success they had in preseason, and you had roster spots available and open against the Saints, and you didn't call him up, and instead you called up Fedoni, who you didn't even use. You had 4 tight ends. What the fuck? It's decisions like this that I hope Mara does not forget when if the team doesn't make the playoffs this season. That if we go 6-11 or 5-12 or even 7-10, and like I don't think you have to give it a lot of hard thought if we miss the playoffs. And I don't think you're going to have a lot of people blame the Giants if they move on from Daboll and Schoen because of the decision making in game and leading up to the game. The personnel management and has been atrocious. If little Jordan Humphrey plays in the Saints game, we win. Like, we win. He gives you a better shot to win than Hyatt or Collins. So that's why it's just like, what were you seeing that led you to believe that little Jordan Humphrey did not deserve a roster spot? What were you seeing? Because in the preseason, all I saw was good play after good play after good play, especially big play potential down the field on contested catches. You're seeing that in preseason. Were you seeing something completely different in practice to the point where it's like, nah, we can't, no, where it's a liability. He's a liability. What were you seeing? So, and he makes his impact felt right away. After Gunnar Olszewski has that long return, after the defense holds the Eagles offense to a field goal, which was huge, given the hot start, Jamie Gillen kicking it short of the landing zone and giving the Eagles the ball at the 40. So they're already like, a play or two away from being within a scoring opportunity. And then the Eagles coming out hot on the ground, and then Giants defense stiffens. Jackson Dart on 3rd and 12, down 3 at our own 44. First drive, throws it deep right to Lil Jordan Humphrey for a 34-yard pass completion on Keely Ringo. That's not a situation where, I mean, you look at the tape, like, Humphrey's not wide open. It's not like an easy target. And Dart put it in a position where Lil Jordan Humphrey, 6'4", 220 something, can go up and get the ball because he has the size advantage over Ringo. You take the shot there with Lil Jordan Humphrey. You probably don't take that shot with Bo Collins or Jalen Hyatt. So right away, and then right away, every Giants fan is just like, holy shit, why didn't we have this last week? And then you have Dart scrambling up the middle for the 20-yard touchdown. My God, what a play. What a play. This goes back to the Giants offensive line, bending but not breaking, to use a defensive analogy. Like, they're not getting cleanly beat. No one's getting beat on a move by a pass rusher. It's more of, all right, they're losing the battle, but they're not getting beat so bad that it's causing the play to completely blow up right from the start, which is what we've seen a lot of, especially in the 2023 season, where you're not even giving your quarterback a chance. They were giving Jackson Dart a chance, and Jackson Dart was able to make the most of his chances. And on this play, the thing that stands out to me, my God, the move he put on Zach Bond, who is an all-pro, and made him look foolish and went into the end zone untouched. What I loved about watching this game on Prime, and I hope more people tune into this, is that they have Prime Vision with next gen stats, and it basically gives you an all 22, almost like an all 22 look. Most people, I would say, compare it to like what you see in Madden. Like if you play Madden, you have that kind of behind the offense type view, and you can see, and you just have a better view of how the play is developing. Whereas side scroller type traditional broadcast view, you can't really see what's happening down the field, so you don't get a sense of what the quarterback is seeing. This is, I wish every game was like this. Fox needs to pay attention. CBS needs to pay attention. Everyone that's broadcasting football games, pay attention and do this. Offer this alternative broadcast view because it is incredible. Now, you can't necessarily see where the ball is going. Like, you see the quarterback throw, and you're like, oh, there's no way he's going to complete that. Because when he throws it, you're like, the defender's crashing down. That's going to be picked. That's going to be knocked away. And then it's like, oh, it's complete. So it's like a lot of the completions, you're like very surprised because it's like, there's no way he's going to be able to fit it in there. But that's just a testament of, NFL quarterback arm strength. Like, even the guys that are considered to have not, average arms are sticking it in there. There are plenty of times where even with both Hurts and Dart, it's like I see them begin their throwing motion. I'm like, he's not going to complete that. And then it's just like, oh, completion. And first down, it's like, okay. But that Dart scramble up the middle was huge. Next gen stats, ironically, said Giants quarterback Jackson Dart scrambled to run just 2.4 seconds after the snap on his 20-yard touchdown. The average quarterback scores on only 3.6% of similar runs, according to Next Gen Stats expected rushing yards model. This came from Dan Salamone, Giants.com. The Giants have scored a touchdown on their first possession in 3 straight games for the first time since 2009. That is wild. 16 years. Holy smokes. Since at least 1991, Jackson Dart and Patrick Mahomes are the only quarterbacks to lead their teams to a touchdown on their first possession in each of their first 3 career starts. You know, I had put out a clip about Jackson Dart and all the like crazy stats that he's accomplished in his first couple starts, and people were like, dude, you're reaching. A lot of these stats are like, come on, guy. Like, they're, as someone said, these are like baseball stats. And I'm like, yes, very much so. I agree. Like, there's so many conditional elements, and like, it's just kind of nuts. Like, if we had the kind of advanced analytics that we have now back in like the 60s and 70s, I'm sure it wouldn't be as impressive. But, you know, he's in some pretty good company. You know, do we have a Patrick Mahomes on our hands? Holy smokes. The Giants have now scored a touchdown on their first and second possessions in back-to-back games for the first time since at least 2000, which is huge. You know, 2000, we went to the Super Bowl. Just saying. On that second touchdown drive, where we go up 13-3 and McAtamany misses the extra point, dear God. Dart had that big pass completion deep left to Wan'Dale Robinson for 26 yards. That was on a 2nd and 6 from our 38, so that flips the field. Awesome. This was like halfway through the first, and then later on in the drive, another just outstanding play by Jackson Dart, scrambling, buying time, not panicking, not running into a sack, just finding space, and manages to finally see that Wan'Dale's wide open and makes the throw, drills it in there before the corner can make the tackle. Wan'Dale sheds the tackle and takes off for the touchdown, and we go up 13-3. Yeah, I mean, Wan'Dale was open for a while on that play, but it's just Dart, you know, is just trying to stay alive and survive in the pocket, so he wasn't able to see him initially. But the fact that he's able to come back to him and make another deadly accurate throw, where it's like, how many times have you seen a quarterback scramble, and just speaking from personal experience, you scramble, and it's like your what is it? Your throwing motion, your throwing style, your mechanics can tend to get a little fucked up. And that's where we talk about like off-platform throws, and that's where it separates the elite quarterbacks from the average quarterbacks, is like when you are scrambling, when it is off script, you know, the loose plays that Brian Daboll talked about, can you still be accurate? And Dart has shown that plenty in the limited time that we've seen him. So, you know, great throw and a great play by Wan'Dale. You know, I'm one of the biggest Wan'Dale, I don't want to say hater, but it's they're starting to get a little bit better about figuring out how to use him. You know, I'm still not wild about a lot of the design plays to him, where it's like the sweep and the bubble screen. It's just like it just feels, I don't know. I'm not a huge fan, but I am a fan of this, getting him the ball down the field. You know, we saw it against the Cowboys that he's not, you know, he doesn't have to be this guy that's just running 5 yards underneath the coverage. He can be a guy that can expand your possibilities, stretch the field a little bit. The Giants scored 13 points in the first quarter, the most since having 14 to start a Week 5 game at Dallas in 2020. So, as much shit as we gave Joe Judge and Jason Garrett, that was the last time that the Giants put up 13 in the first quarter. And that is a span. I know 2020 sounds like it was just last week, but this is the first time the Giants scored more than 7 points in the first quarter in their last 81 regular season games. So, yeah, that's 5 years, folks. That's 5 years. Or we have not scored more than 7 points in the first quarter. That's the second longest streak in NFL history. So as much as I've been throwing out some kind of really, you know, oh, you're stretching, Neal. Feels like you're grasping at straws with a lot of these Jackson Darts stats. I don't know. He's doing things that we have not seen in a long time, is the point I'm trying to make there. We had a in the second quarter, we had a 3rd and 6 from our 37. We're down by 4 after the Eagles went down the field and did the tush push that drove the nation crazy. Dart completes the pass to little Jordan Humphrey for 9 yards to get the first. That was huge. Later on, towards the end of the first half, there's under the 2 minutes. It's 3rd and 1 from the Philly 6. Dart goes up the middle for 2 yards to get the first down. I believe that was the QB sneak. And then, what was it? A couple plays later, 2nd and goal from the Philly 4. Scat goes left guard for the 4-yard touch. So that's big, or major, as Manti Te'o likes to say on Good Morning Football. You got flashbacks, right? You got the cold sweats. We're going up 13-3, just like we went up 14-3 against the Saints, and you're saying, are we going to actually do this again? Back-to-back weeks, we're actually going to go up big and then blow the lead and not be able to keep up? You're down 17-13, and that's where it's like, is this the same old Giants? Is this the same old Giants? And the ability to come back and score before the first half is up and go up and get the lead at the end of the first half indicates to me that things are not the same old. It's not rinse and repeat, because I think that's been the mantra for the first quarter plus of the season is like, same old, rinse and repeat. We've been down this road before. We haven't learned our lessons. And so the ability to come back there and understand how important it is to go up and not be down at half is really encouraging. Jackson Dart in the first half versus the Eagles, this is from PFF, was 10 of 13 for 165 total yards, 2 total touchdowns, and a 132.5 passer rating. Yet again, you look back to the Saints game, he had similar type numbers where it's like he's putting up really great numbers in the first half. Can he play a full game, a complete game for 60 minutes? Another great play, the best play to start the second half in the third quarter was about halfway through the third quarter, almost a little under 9 minutes. It was 2nd and 10 from the Philly 13. Okay, we're up 20-17. You don't want to kick a field goal here because that feels like you lost. We've had such struggles in the red zone. We've been dead last or near dead last in red zone efficiency for 2+ seasons. If this is truly a different team, a new team that is going to change how the league views us as a franchise, then we need to score a touchdown here. And so what do? We give the ball to Cam Skattebo, who has another really tight, nice run, very well blocked. I believe this is the pin and pull that I saw from Coach Dan Casey, because I subscribe to his new newsletter, the One Play a Day newsletter, and I believe this is the one that he mentioned in his newsletter where he highlights a great play. And so he highlighted a tight end escort motion. So Theo goes in motion to the right, and then right tackle Jermaine Illuminor, who, kudos to him, he's been dealing with like a back issue, and his, while he didn't have his best game, or is that Jermaine Illuminor? I believe it is. I don't think it's Marcus Bowe. But, he kind of struggled against the Saints. He had a bunch of penalties that really ruined the momentum there, especially in the second half. He comes back here and he plays a pretty decent game, and he makes sure the world knows it in social media afterwards. He's like, how about that motherfucking O-line? You know what I'm saying? I'm like, yeah, Jermaine, we hear you. Very well blocked run play. But Theo goes in motion around Jermaine Illuminor. Illuminor pulls. You had, I think, Lil Jordan Humphrey crack down, which is great to see. Got enough, a big piece of the edge rusher there. I don't know if that's Nakobe Dean or if that's, I can't see who that is. But great block down by Lil Jordan Humphrey. Van Roten's getting down the field. I would have liked him to see him finish because I think Cam could have scored on that play if he does. But you have like Andrew Thomas running down the field and making some plays. So there's plenty of running room on that pin and pull out of the pistol formation where Dart tosses it to Skattebo going right out of the shotgun formation. And Cam makes the most of it. But it's the way he ended the run. It's the way he finished the run. Theo Johnson had an incredible block leading on this where he knocks the cornerback into like the next county. Boom. Drives him back. I mean, the guy went flying. And so Cam doesn't even make defender doesn't make contact on Cam until he's 8 yards down the field, 10 yards down the field. And then he finishes the run. He knocks the defender on his ass and then jumps forward to get another 3 to 4 yards. Boom. I think that was Zach Bond. Zach Bond. Not the best game for Zach Bond. But yeah, Bond sheds a block either from Runyon or Van Roten and tries to come up on Cam, and Cam just levels him and floors him and then dives for the first down. That's how you know this team's different and this game is going to be different. We will not go quietly into the night. We will not allow the Eagles to come back and hurt us like the Saints did. So Cam ends up getting a touchdown run there. I believe that's where he fought for the end zone, and then they initially called him short, and the referee put his hand up, and Jackson Dart high-fived him. And they eventually came to the decision that, yeah, Scat did get in. So we're up 27-17, as the third quarter is coming to a close. And then, my God, I just wanted to highlight this. The throw that Jackson Dart made to Theo Johnson for 22 yards in the third quarter. It's 3rd and 8. We're up by 10. We're at our own 35. Again, 10-point lead shouldn't feel tenuous, but it does feel tenuous when it's the Giants, and you've seen this scenario play out not in our favor in the past. Dart moves around, and he's kind of fading to his left, so he's kind of moving to his left, and he is getting hit as he throws. It's not a floater, but he didn't drill it, but he just perfectly laid out pass to Theo Johnson, who's crossing right, and beat his man. And Theo catches it and gets a couple more yards. 22-yard gain on a 3rd and 8 when it wasn't clean. A decent pocket, but wasn't clean, and took a hit and was just deadly accurate, like a perfect throw. Oh, it's like shit like that, plays like that, throws like that. I don't have any doubt whatsoever about Jackson Dart being our franchise quarterback. What I doubt is this organization fucking him up. And I think that, I'm not alone in that. Like, everyone has the same feeling. We don't want to fuck this guy up because we fucked up Daniel Jones. And I'll say it, we fucked up the second half of Eli Manning's career for sure, 1,000%. So we don't want that to happen to Jackson Dart. So it would be nice if we could, thank you, Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen for recognizing the talent and for making the right move, trading back up and picking that talent. But I think we would like to provide him with better support and development than Daboll and Schoen can. So, you will not be forgotten. Thank you. I still think we move on from them. Barring a playoff, I think at this point, they have to make the playoffs. They really do have to make the playoffs for them to keep their jobs. And then in the fourth quarter, this doesn't show up in the stat sheet or the box score or whatever, but, Jalen Hyatt, man, healthy scratch, inactive, not seeing the field, not getting snaps, put on a really poor showing against the Saints last week to the point where they bring up a dude from the practice squad. But this is what Jalen Hyatt can do for you. It's very clear that Jalen Hyatt in this system, within this organization, is not going to be a wide receiver 3 or even a wide receiver 4. But this is what the intention was with Jalen Hyatt and we fumbled the bag when it came to another player. Jalen Hyatt is a deep threat. More times than not, Jalen Hyatt is not catching the deep ball. But in a case like this, you have the fourth quarter, less than 10 minutes left. We're up by 10. We're at the Philly 21. It's 3rd and 8. Dart takes a shot to Hyatt, a deep ball. It's a perfectly thrown ball. Another absolute dart from Dart, a dime from Dart. And people are getting on Jalen Hyatt for not catching this ball. And it's like, well, they call it defensive pass interference for a reason. It's because Keely Ringo had a hold of Hyatt's right arm. So he couldn't bring up his right arm to make the two-handed catch. Now, if Hyatt is OBJ, yeah, he makes the one-handed catch for a touchdown, but he's not. We know that. So, but what the point here is that he can get Hyatt gives you probably the best, other than maybe Neighbors, maybe Slayton. He gives you the best opportunity or possibility of a DPI on a deep shot, because he's going to beat his man with speed. Hopefully they're not playing press, because I think if they play bump or press on him, he's not going to be able to get off the line. And then, okay, maybe he's not. That's something that he probably needs to work on. But this is the benefit of having Jalen Hyatt, is that his speed kills. And if you're not going to get a completion, you're at least going to get a DPI. So, and that's 20 yards. He set it on the goal line, and we're able to finish it off. So, Giants entered Thursday night ranked last in the NFL in red zone efficiency, but converted on 3 drives inside the 20, which is awesome. Giants also converted 11 third downs, which I mentioned. It's their most in a game since doing it twice in 2014. That's when the offense kind of came alive after once we got OBJ in the mix and he felt comfortable, like that's when our offense really took off, because I think the first couple games, he missed the first 4 games doing it due to a hamstring injury. So the offense was not playing well, not clicking. And then once he got in the fold and Eli, was able to develop a rapport with him, that Giants offense took off. It was just our defense stunk. Dart is the 3rd quarterback in the Super Bowl era to rush for 50 or more yards in each of his first 3 career starts, joining Lamar Jackson and Jalen Hurts. NFL Plus tweeted that Jackson Dart is the first rookie quarterback to ever defeat a reigning Super Bowl MVP quarterback in prime time within his first 3 career starts. Baseball stat, but I still love it. Feed me all the stats, man. PFF also tweeted Jackson Dart versus the Blitz on Thursday Night Football. 9 of 14, 108 total yards, 1 touchdown, and a 108.9 passer rating. So if you want to, that's a great litmus test, a great measurement stick. That's a metric that I am going to key in on. It makes me think back to when we played the 49ers on Thursday Night Football in 2023, early on in the season, and Wink, known blitzer, heavy blitzer, was throwing all kinds of pressure at Brock Purdy, and Brock Purdy just handled it. And, say what you will about Brock Purdy, but he got a big major contract extension for a reason. I think he is a great quarterback. He's going through some injuries this season that is going to derail it. But, dude, if we didn't have Jackson Dart, I'd take Brock Purdy in a heartbeat, dude. He just those are the best QBs. They show up and show out when the pressure's on, a la Eli Manning, Tom Brady, etc. ESPN Insights said that Cam Skattebo is the first Giants player with 3 rushing touchdowns in a game since Ahmad Bradshaw in 2011. It is so goddamn fitting that Cam Skattebo got 44. And I love that Ahmad Bradshaw was wearing his jersey. Like, they're like kindred spirits. They are just brothers from another mother. Obviously Ahmad not as big as Cam, but Cam maybe not as fast or quick as Ahmad, but similar physical, tough, brutal running styles. So I'm so happy he has number 44. It's just so fitting. Skattebo became the second rookie running back in franchise history to rush for 3 touchdowns in a game since Charlie Evans, who ran for 3 touchdowns versus the San Diego Chargers, November 7th, 1971. The last rookie running back to rush for 3 or more touchdowns in a single game was Antonio Gibson in 2020, when the Commanders played the Cowboys on Thanksgiving, I want to say, or Thanksgiving week 2020. Of Skattebo's 98 rushing yards, 79 came after contact, while 47 came against stacked boxes. That means 8 or more defenders. So, it's tough for me not to make the comparison. Like, it's tough for me to not make comparisons to Daniel Jones for Jackson Dart. It's tough for me to not make comparisons to Saquon Barkley with Cam Skattebo because you kind of see where the difference is and where the money's being made. How many times have we seen stacked boxes against Saquon? It's just like he's not really doing much with that. I think the only game where it's like you saw a bunch of stacked boxes where he still played well and ran well was that Texans game where they gave him the ball 35 times, which we'll get to that whole story once we talk about the Saquon doc. But fucking Giants, dude. The dysfunction is real. So continuing on with those next-gen stats about Skattebo, he had a plus 0.38 expected points after the play per rush, which was huge. He had a 53% success rate and a plus 23 RYOE, which is rushing yards over expected. So that's what Skattebo has provided that we thought Saquon would provide, is getting the yards after contact. And, in Saquon's defense, especially like in that 2020 season, against the Steelers, there's just no room to run. And even if he did take that advice and decide not to get dance in the backfield and just plow ahead, maybe we're talking about things differently. But it's the idea that with the kind of stature and frame and traits and qualities that Saquon has, that he did underperform as a Giant, save maybe one or two seasons. And you chalk some of that up to the injuries and the psychology and the mentality of coming off those injuries and not feeling 100%. I mean, he said it himself in the doc, which we'll get to, but he did not feel 100% until 2022. So there's the 2 full seasons where it's just like not feeling like yourself. Robbie Calland at our Calland on X said, Cam Skattebo is going to have the biggest fucking deli sandwich named after him soon. Folks ordering the Skattebo and getting 8 different meats and mustard on rye. I love it. It's so funny. Clem, Barstool Clem at the Clem Report, noted Giants Mets gypsy fan like me. I don't know if Skattebo could pass a blue tent test when fully healthy. And Brian Burns had this to say about Cam Skattebo and Jackson Dart. Quote, their energy is contagious. Scat and Dart, they're playing fearless. And that's something I really respect. There was this post from, I think it was Train Island on X, but he was basically taking like snippets from the ESPN story that asked Giants teammates to describe Cam Skattebo. Gunnar Olszewski said he's genuinely an idiot. He blurts out anything. Sometimes he's right, sometimes he's wrong. It's always loud. He's going to say something in every meeting that we have. He's learning. He's awesome. He's as genuine as they come, but reserved is not in his wheelhouse. For him, playing in the NFL is just another day playing football, which is a great outlook and perspective. Fellow running back Tyrone Tracy Jr. said, everyone tells me, bro, get your rook. I'm like, bro, what you want me to do? Tell him to be quiet? He's always yelling. He's very loud. We'll be in meetings and Scat asks a question, just yells it out. He might be wrong, but he'll yell it out and everyone looks at me like, I'm like, bro, what you want me to do? It's nothing crazy, just like he's always yelling. Tight end Daniel Bellinger said, zero filter. First time at a special teams meeting, he asked, what's our job? Our job is to play with speed, get off the ball. And this animal just goes, physicality. And it just made no sense. He just yells things out. Oh, I love it. Turbo, running back Dante Miller, said, it's quiet in the meeting room and he's munching on seeds. And I'm like, this is not normal. I've never seen someone choose seeds louder. He eats loud. He does everything loud. What's a crazy cartoon character? That's a very, very good comparison. Like the Tasmanian devil. I like that. Been missing that. We've been missing a kind of big personality that is not viewed as a distraction or diva or hogging in the spotlight or doing things for the wrong reasons. Because we've had personalities like that. You could say that about OBJ. You can say that about a bunch of guys. of recents. But Cam is different in the sense that he's loud and boisterous because of his unbridled enthusiasm and vigor and excitement for playing the game. I put out that clip about how I wish I could clone Cam Skattebo 10 times for the offense, and then eventually it came around to saying, I think I want to clone him to be the entire roster. Because if everyone had the same approach as Cam Skattebo, you're going to win more games than you don't. My God, we got some dudes. Like, our team is kind of cool. They're fun to watch, which is what we were hoping for. That was like our bare minimum was like, all right, we're going to lose some games, but at least be exciting to watch, at least be fun to watch, at least be competitive. That's the bar, how low it was set for this season. And the fact that these guys are coming in and giving us exciting football that's fun to root for and fun to watch and winning, woo, it's awesome. And it's, I understand it's a team sport, 53 guys, but like the Burns is saying, it's infectious. It's spreading like a virus, and I love it. Dart launching on that third down run where he might have been out of bounds, and they probably should have called him out of bounds before the first down, but he's like jumping head first at tacklers, like essentially targeting, and spearing guys as he's like flying down the field. Obviously that could come back to bite you in the ass, but it's still like it pumps you up. Like you see it as a teammate and you get riled up, you get excited, you want to hit someone. We mentioned Dart high-fiving the official on Skattebo's awesome touchdown run where he's fighting and clawing and getting into the end zone. Scat taunting defenders when we are just shoving the ball down the Eagles' throat on that final drive to clinch it. Talking that shit. That's something that we have not really seen. We've been so beaten down and have lost so much that there have been so many times where it's just like things are happening to you and you're just not fighting back. Like I keep bringing up the Saquon doc, but when Saquon first came, his first game against the Giants as an Eagle, so it was October 2024. We lost 28-3. He had a career day. There was a situation at the goal line where he gets the ball and he plows in head first. Again, showcasing the power that we know he has and he has that potential. And he's talking crazy shit to Dexter Lawrence, who's on his ass and on his back. And he's like, "You small boy, you're playing small boy." And it's like, there's just zero fight back. There was just zero. No one's coming to Dexter's defense. No one's shoving Saquon. No one's getting in Saquon's face. There's no yapping. There's no fight. There was no fight. And that was like October of the 2024 season. So it was like it's like we had already written off the season. And even Dexter knew, like, there's no point in me talking shit to Saquon because they're owning us right now. So the fact that we're now on the other side of it and we're able to talk some smack, that's good, man. It's good. They're doing like coordinated dances after touchdowns. Scat and Dart doing the dance they were doing. They're doing like in post-game interviews, like Scat's getting interviewed post-game and Dart comes up. Neither of them are wearing helmets and they headbutt each other. Scat, is on the Prime Video post-game show with Ryan Fitzpatrick, and he rips off his shirt like friggin' Hulk Hogan, and Fitz is tearing his shirt off, and they're chest bumping. And underrated part of that whole video is Jackson Dart holding a microphone and trying to get Scat to say something, and eventually he gives us the vaunted woo. Bill Barnwell at Bill Barnwell on X said Jackson Dart and Cam Skattebo are also going to have a multi-hour meeting after this game, but it's just going to be them hitting wrestling finishers off the couch on each other, which I can completely see. That is not out of the realm of possibilities. Like I mentioned, we rushed 39 times for 172 yards and 4 touchdowns. The last time a Giants team rushed for 170 or more yards and 4 or more touchdowns was against Washington on December 5th, 2010. Wan'Dale Robinson was one of 3 receivers with multiple touchdown catches of 30 or more yards in 2025, joining Tampa Bay's emerging rookie, possible rookie of the year, Emeka Egbuka, and Chargers wideout Quentin Johnston, who's having who was looking like he was having a bounce back year after being labeled a bust. Giants Daily at NYG Daily on X said, "It's hilarious. Little Jordan Humphrey is starting over Jalen Hyatt and Bo Collins 1 week after the Giants deciding not to bring Humphrey up. And just another example of how clueless these guys are." I agree. I know. Trying to keep it positive, but at the same time, it's like, we don't forget. We're not going to forget what you did. And I tell you what, man, this is why I say you got to make the playoffs now to keep your job. Because if you get into a position where you miss the playoffs by a game, and it's because of that fucking Saints game, now you have to win enough games to make people forget that Saints game. And this is a great start. So, let's keep it positive. Doug Analytics said, Little Jordan Humphrey played all but one snap in the first half after being activated off the practice squad. He had 3 catches on 4 targets. He did have a drop in the end zone, which sucks. He averaged 16 yards per catch and had an average depth of target of 12.9 yards, which coming into this game, we said that the Eagles are allowing, and that wasn't a league high, but they are in the top 10 in terms of average depth of target. So we could attack down the field if we give Dart enough time or if he's able to buy enough time. Lil Jordan, LJ, had 3.77 yards per route run and a plus 1.1 EPA per target. So he should be active on the roster. Like, no more practice squad bullshit with this guy. We were talking about last week, like, why didn't we bring in and sign Isaiah Hodgins? Well, the thinking must be it's because you have an Isaiah Hodgins-esque type player, possibly better, in Little Jordan Humphrey. I was excited when we signed him in free agency because I had seen him play when I was with my ex-girlfriend who's a Broncos fan. We would watch Broncos games because she had a Sunday ticket, and I got to see LJ play, and I was like, this guy is kind of cool. He has the ability to like take over games. Like, he has that kind of physicality to him. So it's something that we have not had a big-bodied receiver who can make plays and do that kind of stuff in a long time. I want to say since Plax, but I could be wrong. Bobby Skinner said, back-to-back Jalen Hyatt catches and the crowd goes wild. Yeah, I mean, it's tough. It's tough. You wouldn't be wrong in saying that he's a bust because, we had high hopes for him. It's like, okay, maybe the route running's not there from a technical standpoint, but the guy's got so much speed that he can stretch the field and he can be a deep ball threat. And we saw a glimpse of what he could do against the Patriots in 2023, going 6 catches, 100 plus yards and a touch. So it's like, to get that DPI in the end zone, it was a nice, like, the beginning of a redemption arc for Jalen Hyatt. It's like, okay, that Slayton and you had your opportunity against the Saints. You didn't take full advantage of it, and you ended up being a minus. You were more of a plus in this game. Can you build on that and get better? That's the hope. Center John Michael Schmitz left midway through the third quarter with a concussion and a nose injury. Austin Schlottman took his place and played better. And I'm here to say, yeah. I mean, I haven't reviewed the film, but the eye test seems like we were able to run the ball with a greater degree of success than we were with JMS. I'm pretty sure it's Schlottman. On the broadcast, Al Michaels and Kirk Herbstreit kept on calling him Schlottman. I was like, whoa, they really, this is not like a deli owner, Schlottman Auto Body. This is Austin Schlottman. I think it's Schlottman, but I like what he brings to the offensive line, and I think he makes the unit better. So it's like, JMS, take your time. I know that we have an extended period of rest before we get to the Broncos game in Denver, but seeing how it is the Mile High, it's a travel game away, I would think that they rest him, and especially after what Schlottman was able to do in his stead. So, yeah, take your time coming back, JMS, because I think we got something in Schlottman here. Taking a look at the Giants' drives, we had our moment. We had 3 and outs, so it wasn't like we were absolutely perfect, on offense, but that 15 play drive in the second quarter that resulted in a touchdown. That's, again, another indicator, another KPI that this team might be different, that we might have more hope than we have in the past. How many times have we had a 15-play drive end in a field goal? You're like, ugh, wasted opportunity. So the ability to punch it in there is great. And then a 9-play drive, 56 yards with a touch is cool to see as well. And then, the coolest drive that really made me and possibly made a lot of people kind of buck up was that last drive, the 10th drive of the game. 12 plays, 6 minutes and 50 seconds, basically runs against run defenses. Like, Eagles know we're running the ball. We know we're running the ball. And we're able to pick up 46 yards on 12 plays and run out the clock. Dan Schneider said, no idea what happened there, but it looks like, so this is the timeout that Daboll called before the Eagles were about to take a delay of game penalty. And I think this was towards the end of the first half. It ultimately did not come back to bite us because the Eagles were, I don't know what the fuck the Eagles were doing at the end of the first half. Like, they fucked it up more than we did. But it's another instance of, like, why are you taking a timeout there? Play clock's at, 1. The Eagles receivers are not set. It's clear that they're not going to get the play off, and there's going to be a delay of game penalty, and you take a timeout. It's just so frustrating. Another... it can't be all rainbows and unicorns with this win. I mean, we do have to look at some of the negatives, and I have to tell you, man, I don't think I've ever felt worse about a coach in a win than I have about Brian Daboll in this win. I actually, I don't think I've ever experienced something like that where we won the game handedly by multiple scores, huge, big, best win of his tenure, and he looked, and I felt worse about a coach. It's unprecedented. I've never experienced anything like that where I felt worse about a coach after a blowout win. John Frashella at NFL Frashella on X said, most jaw-dropping moment of the night. Jackson Dart scrambles, gets hurt. This is the third straight game where he has to go into the blue tent, I believe. The Giants doctors take him into the blue tent. They're doing their jobs. They're evaluating him. You have the independent counsel, concussion protocol. And Brian Daboll sees Russell Wilson goes in the game. Russell Wilson, I think he throws 2 passes, one complete to Wan'Dale for short, doesn't do shit. Another one that I think might have got tipped at the line of scrimmage to Jalen Hyatt that wasn't going to go anywhere. That was a key situation where it's like if he just completes a pass on that 3rd down and 9, it gets us. I don't know that we're going to kick the field goal with McAtamney there because I don't think he has the leg like Gano does from that range. But as Daboll pointed out in the post-game presser, you get closer to a point where you might think about going for it on 4th down. So say you get a 5-yard, 6-yard completion. It's now 4th and 4, 4th and 3. He would have wanted Dart back in the game for that 4th down to convert and extend the drive and keep the Eagles off the field and hopefully cement the win. Instead, Russell gets the ball tipped at the line incomplete, and so we have to punt. The way Brian Daboll handled that situation just is enough for me. I've been out on Brian Daboll since the end of last year. I was I really thought we were going to move on from the end of last year. I was very surprised and disappointed that we kept him. How many examples have I pulled of just how he has failed us as a head coach? Almost every game, even in wins. The last game against the Saints, it's you have 4th and short around midfield. Your offense has scored 2 touchdowns on 2 drives. You punt in both situations. Coward football. You then get down big at the start of the 4th quarter, and you just kind of phone it in. You're just all right, we're going to lose this game. And then tonight, it was his management and handling. Okay, you're an emotional guy. I'm an emotional guy. Dart's passionate. You're passionate. I get it. But and the broadcast booth brought this up. A lot of, pundits, talking heads have brought it up. We just have never seen a coach do that. It's no matter how good your quarterback is, yes, you're very in tune and interested in what the medical staff is doing, and you want your quarterback in there as quickly as possible. But the way that he handled that was just awful. And I can't imagine that John Mara, even in his current state, would put up with that. I think he put out a statement on X being like, it's uncouth, not appropriate. Daboll apologized, but like that has to stick, for a guy that is going to fire McAdoo for benching Eli, is going to fire Joe Judge for QB sneaking inside his own 10 in long down and distances, like basically surrendering and quitting in the last game of a season that was already lost a long time ago. For him to fire coaches that have done like not as egregious things as Brian Daboll that's just, to me, that means if he doesn't, he's just worn down. He's just like, I can't go through this again. To owe money to another coach who's not coaching for us. It's like, I don't know if I can go down that road again. Because I feel like in any other season, if you take away precedence, you take away history, I don't see how Brian Daboll would be able to survive the season. But it's because Joe Judge, Shermer, McAdoo got the quick hook. It's 1,000% because of that. Daboll screaming at them to get Dart back out there because Russell Wilson was so bad. Footballism at Footballism on X said Daboll saw 2 plays of Russell Wilson and started cussing out the team doctor to hurry up and clear Dart. Iceman at Isaiah Daboll said, how ass Russell Wilson got to be for the head coach and starting running back to be in the injury tent for Dart like their wives are in labor. Oh, I thought that was a great analogy. Yeah, I mean, Skattebo's in there, but for the love of God, Skattebo is, as Gunnar Olszewski said, a loud idiot. Like, he's a football guy. He's a football player who's just fueled by emotion and passion for the game. So it's understandable for someone like Skattebo to get in there because he's just a nut job. Not for Brian Daboll. Daboll needs to be the guy who's guiding and directing the ship and the team and being the leader. That was not leadership that you saw in that moment. That was not leadership. For Skattebo to do it is one thing. He's passionate. It's his boy. He loves him. He wants to make sure he's okay. And I understand Daboll has that same kind of affinity for Dart to the point where it's like a little unprofessional, but like, you can't do that. And he said he apologized to the medical team, but if you put 2 and 2 together, right? So if Pat Leonard had that whole, some people call it clickbait type story primed for, when he made a big deal about in the game leading up to the Charger game, Daboll using air quotes and saying medical staff, and Pat Leonard saying like the Giants organization, the brass will not put up with that. That's the final straw. Like, that's the kind of thing that John Mara would basically end your tenure with, basically citing that as like, that's the final straw that broke the camel's back. I think that along with how he treated the medical staff in that moment, I think that's enough. I think that's enough for Mara. Cause benefit analysis, my guy. Risk versus reward. This guy's doing some risky shit, and you're not seeing the rewards. And he's costing you a fan base, and what is he providing in return? It's like Jackson Dart is currently saving Brian Daboll's job, and that's not how it should be. Brian Daboll should save his job, not by Jackson Dart running around and making plays. That's not Brian Daboll winning the game. That's not Brian Daboll out coaching the other staff. That's Jackson Dart winning the game. And it's like, thank you for identifying that Jackson Dart's awesome and great. Thank you. But if that's the only thing you can pin your tail on, or whatever the fuck the expression is, if that's the only thing you can hang your hat on, if you're Brian Daboll, that's not good, dude. And that's not going to save your job. Hater Report at __ on X said, dog, you can't make this up. Russell Wilson came in, threw one pass, got booed off the field, and the coach starts yelling at the team doctors. It's time to go spend time with the family, bro. It's a rough look for Russell Wilson, and I think everyone is pretty much in agreement that he should not be the quarterback too, that, you basically should have, Jameis Winston is your future as backup quarterback. I personally would like to see He's got another year under his contract. Wilson does not have another year under his contract, and it's crazy to me that he has not been traded yet. And if he's not traded by the deadline, Jesus Christ, Joe Schoen, what the fuck are you doing? What are you doing? And I know, his track record has not been great at the trade deadline, Joe Schoen. He has not been good at the trade deadline. We don't have to go through the litany of moves that he should have made and didn't. Not trading Russell Wilson, I don't care if it's a 7th rounder. You have to get something back for him because you're not getting anything from him being on the team other than this intangible leadership thing that some people are pointing out. And that was like the main primary driver and reason for why the team liked him so much. And they just kept pushing that narrative of like, oh, he's a leader, he's a leader, he's a leader. Jackson Dart's a leader. He's led the team to touchdowns. He's led the team in more ways than one that has a measurable outcome, a measurable impact. The leadership that, quote unquote, that Russell Wilson is displaying and exhibiting, is it having a measurable impact? I would argue that Jameis Winston and what he's been able to do just in the time that I see him and the cameras on him helping out James Hudson after he's having a meltdown, helping out so-and-so after a bad play or good play or picking someone up. And I see Winston having a bigger impact in that regard than Russell Wilson. So then why the fuck is Russell Wilson on the team? And it goes back to when they signed him in free agency. It's like that to me was like, okay, you don't have confidence that you're going to get your quarterback in the draft. But then you got your quarterback in the draft, and now you're stuck being like, oh, well, I have to start Russell Wilson because of some political bullshit. What are the odds? What's the line on Schoen trading Wilson? Probably not great, and he's probably not going to do it, which sucks because he should. The fact that he didn't trade Wilson to the Bengals, it's like, what the fuck were the Bengals offering? Like, what did they give up? Oh, man, I got to look this up now because Browns will send a 2026 6th-round draft pick to the Bengals and receive a 5th rounder in that same year in return. My guess is that Schoen really values his 5th and 6th round draft picks. I don't know, dude. To get a 5th rounder and give up a 6th rounder to be rid of Russell Wilson, I would have taken that. I don't think anyone would have argued with that. I don't think to get a 4th rounder and nothing and back is kind of a pipe dream. So it seems like Schoen, I don't think other teams are asking too much or not offering enough. I just think Schoen feels like it's not worth. Russell Wilson is worth a 4th rounder, or he can't get a 5th rounder without sacrificing a 6th rounder. I guess that was the thought process, because from all the reports, it's like the Bengals were talking to everyone, and they're certainly open and wanted to make the move. Tracy made his return from injury, which was kind of unexpected and a surprise. I thought he would be out a little bit longer. He only had 4 carries for 6 yards, the long of 3. So I think that's just an issue of just kind of getting your feet underneath you again. It's good to dip the toe, similar to like Andrew Thomas having a capped snap count. The first game back from injury, you're kind of tentative, so I'm not too concerned or worried about that. When he's able to get up to speed and 100%, and we have Cam at 100%, oh my God, dude, look out. Wandale, 6 catches for 84 yards and a touch on 7 targets. That's huge. And we talked about Little Jordan. Theo Johnson, another good game, 2 catches, 27 yards, although he did have that big drop down the middle where Dart put it right on him. It's a catch that you need to make, and he couldn't come up with it. He might have had another drop as well. For the Eagles defense, Jordan Davis got a sack and a hit. Patrick Johnson got a sack and a hit. Adoree Jackson had 2 passes defended, but he looked pretty bad, especially on that goal line to goal situation where he had to come square up against Cam Skattebo and made a business decision. Andrew Makuba also had a pass breakup, 7 combined tackles. But yeah, not having to deal with Quinyon Mitchell was huge. We took advantage of Keely Ringo in his stead, and Eagles defense just does not look right. And maybe it'll look different with Jalen Carter, similar to, I don't want to say Jalen Carter's Dexter Lawrence, but when Dexter Lawrence goes down, our defense really takes a hit. And even though Dexter is not playing up to snuff to the level that we expect of him this season, I have to think that it's the illness took a lot out of him. He had the illness designation going into that Saints game, didn't play a whole lot in that, and didn't look great in this game. But I think it's a combination of the illness taking a lot out of him. I also think that dislocated elbow is not healthy, and he's not able to do what he normally can do when he has a good elbow. I think that elbow is crucial in terms of shedding blocks, getting separation, pushing off blockers, shedding blockers. So there's that. The Giants defense versus the Eagles offense. The Eagles passing offense really sucks. I know it didn't look like that in the first half because they were getting some massive chunk plays, but they've been below average pretty much all season. Third for U.S. total passing yards, lower net yards per passing attempt than us. Second fewest first downs by passing, tied for fifth for the most first downs by rushing. The rushing offense was the fifth high coming into the game, was the fifth highest expected points contributed by the offense from the rushing standpoint. But when we're able to, for the most part, hinder or inhibit, their rush offense, you can see to win games through their pass offense, probably not gonna happen. But man, Devontae Smith and AJ Brown, I couldn't stop thinking about that shot of them on the bench covering their mouths as they're just talking. They're just talking a mad amount of shit about Jalen Hurts and the offense, like the game plan, the scheme, how Hurts is playing. Like they were just, and it's been boiling and boiling and boiling and boiling, but they've been winning. And so I think that now that you've lost 2 in a row, probably should have beat the Broncos, but let them come back in the game and win that. And then, against the Giants, who you have historically owned, and they were coming off a really bad loss to a bad Saints team. Like, I think it was not far-fetched to me to think that one of them, if not both of them, could get traded. And if that happens, oh boy, Philadelphia sports radio is going to be must listen because, they do not look happy. The frustration is just oozing and overflowing with that team of just Devontae Smith, the overthrow from Hurts to Devontae Smith where he's wide open. I will say this, Smith I think he tweaked his hamstring. He had something going on with his hamstring. So that, I think, played a factor in that overthrow. Whereas if Smith is running full speed, is 100% healthy, and he's at top speed, that's not an overthrow. But I think because he had the hamstring, he couldn't kick into the extra gear and he couldn't get to the ball. So it's like people want to come down on Hurts, and Hurts did not have a great game despite having a 98.5 QB rating. But I do think Devontae could have made a better effort there. The fact that they came into this game with like a lights out red zone percentage, and didn't have a reputation for turning the ball over, and we got a fumble recovery and a pick six, is just really impressive. That was awesome. Guard Landon Dickinson was inactive, so like how much did that play a role into their offense not functioning like they would like to? Philadelphia managed to gain just 8 yards of offense on each of its first 3 drives after the first half. So in the first 3 drives of the second half, only 8 yards. We've talked a lot about in the past, and I think Daboll might have brought this up a bunch of times, but the middle 8 is what they call it, I think. So it's the last 4 minutes heading into the end of the first half, and then the first 4 minutes coming out of the halftime break. So the first 4 minutes of the second half, the last 4 minutes of the first half, the middle 8, we have been atrocious, and we have been god-awful for I don't know how many years in that middle 8. And then for us to go down, score the touchdown to take the lead at the end of the first half, and then come out in the beginning of the second half and only allowed 8 yards of offense, that's a good indicator. That's a good sign. So Barkley gets the 31 yards in the first 2 plays of the game. Hurts was limited to just 13 rushing yards as the Eagles gained a total of 73 yards on 20 carries, good enough for a 3.7 yards per carry average. Held the Eagles to 73 rushing yards overall, the fewest they have allowed all season. Burns now has 7 sacks through 6 games. It makes him the 4th Giant to produce at least 7 sacks through as many games. He joins Dexter Lawrence, who did it in last year when we were pretty much leading the league through the first half of the season in sacks. He also joins JPP, Jason Pierre-Paul, who had 7.5 sacks through 6 games in 2011. Super Bowl year. Osi Umenyiora, who had 8 sacks through the first 6 games in the 2010 season and 7 through the first 6 games in 2007 Super Bowl year. And Michael Strahan had 10.5 sacks through the first 6 games in 2001 when he broke the single season record. So, again, all signs pointing to something good brewing for the Giants. Just not defensively, but as a team. If you can keep up this kind of I guess the pass rush hasn't been where we would like it to be or where we thought it would be, but it is not completely, coming up short to the point where it's like so dramatic that we're like, what the fuck? But if they can continue to build on this and get better with the pass rush and actually get some hits, knockdowns, hurries, which we were talking about last week, then you're setting up the offense to do great things. Should be able to win games. Cordell Flott's interception was the 3rd of his career, and the 68-yard return was the longest he's recorded in his short career. It was also the longest return by a Giant cornerback since Adoree Jackson recorded a 76-yard return at Philadelphia on Christmas Day 2023, and that's when that game turned around. I was like, because the Eagles were driving, they're going to score, and then Adoree has that pick six. I think it was a pick six, and this was very reminiscent of that. So if there is one thing that Jalen Hurts is prone to, it's that kind of perimeter throw that he needs to avoid that. NFL Plus said Cordell Flott picked off Jalen Hurts, ending the NFL's longest active streak without an interception. Hurts had gone 304 straight pass attempts without turning the ball over through the air. There were some big plays, but 3rd and 8 in the first quarter with 8:36 to go. We're up 7-3. Brian Burns gets the sack for 8 yards. You had of course, that big play, the overthrow towards the beginning of the second half, 12:25 left in the third, 3rd and 6, and he misses that throw. That would have been an easy 6. Again, 3rd and 7 from the Philly 47. 6 minutes left in the third quarter. We get a Brian Burns sack. And then, basically just shut down Barkley. A lot of great tackles for losses on Barkley, which you just didn't see last year with him on the Eagles. It's like he had so many huge running lanes, and he's not really seeing that other than the first 2 runs in that Thursday night game. He's just not getting that window, because you saw it in 2024. They just had to give him a crease. Just allow him to get to that next level, and he's gone. He hits the home runs, and he's not hitting the home runs this year because he's not getting to the second level, because he's not getting that crease. And he has to make a play before the line of scrimmage, and it's just not there for him. Like Flott able to come up and make a tackle on Saquon Barkley? What? That should never happen. And then that punch out, my God, what a great play by Dane Belton. And you just wonder where that has been. That just has not been a part of our arsenal defensively. And it needs to be. It should be. And you can see, it's not like rocket science. Just like the see ball, punch ball. I do have a thought about punching the ball out, though. I saw this in the Rams-Niners game, which was the previous Thursday night game, I think, where Rams are going in. They're going to score. Like the Rams are inside the 5, inside the 10. It's a handoff to Kyren Williams, and he has a big hole, and it looks like he's going to score. And 49ers defensive lineman literally as he's diving like Superman punch style, winds up and throws a haymaker, his fist hits Kyren Williams' face mask, and then hits the ball, knocks the ball out. And I wonder what the legality is around that. I know, like, Tommy Technical over here, like, people don't want to hear it, but at what point is throwing a punch illegal in the NFL? Like, on a ball carrier. Like, if you throw a punch on a ball carrier and you don't hit the ball, is that not illegal? So I wonder if that's ever going to come into play. because I've never heard anyone really talk about it. The fact that you can just wind up and punch a guy who's carrying the ball, and people are like, like how close do you have to be to the ball, or how far away does your punch have to land, for a flag to get tossed there? So, but as long as it's legal, keep throwing those jabs to get the ball out. Just good to get some turnovers because our defense has been lacking in that department. Tyler Nubin had nine combined tackles. Debo had an okay game, I guess. He had another bad DPI. Okereke kind of had a quiet game. He did get a pass defended. Javon Holland had a nice pass defended. I think Kayvon, even though he's not showing up in terms of like QB hits or sacks, had a really nice performance when it came to run defense, being able to bottle up and contain Saquon. And how many times have we seen Kayvon like overcommit or not contain in the run defense? So it's good to see him improving. And, even the broadcast team, Herb Street and Michaels were making note of that, he's been not so great in terms of defending the run. And, they cited like maybe it was drafting Abdul Carter that has lit a fire underneath Kayvon, and he's playing at a high level. So I would have said, like, if we're winless at the trade deadline, then maybe Kayvon, you probably have to think that Kayvon has a good chance of being dealt. But now that you're 2-4 and you have a winnable game against Denver, I know it's not a lock by any means, but it's more winnable now than it was a week ago. And Kayvon has been a big part of that. I don't know that you necessarily want to bail on that. And he has a lot of supporters and advocates pushing for him to get an extension. It's hard to see with Abdul Carter being, more affordable and for longer. So, and you have Burns tied up with a big contract. So it's like, I don't know, that's going to be tough. And hopefully you can just get a big haul in return. I love Barstool Sports said on X with regards to the overthrow to Devontae Smith. Not the worst throw by a Philadelphia athlete tonight. Grant Paulson at Grant Paulson said, there is no quarterback I have a harder time ranking or assessing than Jalen Hurts. My son asked me if he was good the other day, and my answer was 3 minutes long. It's so complicated. And dude, I've been there in terms of trying to answer what should be a simple question from a child and taking forever to talk through it and walk through it and trying to get that answer. My God, I've been there. And Jalen Hurts, much is, I guess I did that with Daniel Jones a lot. Like, is Daniel Jones good? And so you have to go, all right, buckle up because this is going to be a fucking marathon. And I think the same is happening with Jalen Hurts, which is like, he's asked to, well, they're winning games and going to the Super Bowl, and to, oh, he's a Super Bowl MVP. All that talk about him being a bum and trash is unwarranted. And it's now you're just being a hater, and he's proven himself. Now he's a top 5 quarterback. And then he comes out and plays a game like he did, or he's playing like he is this season, which isn't great. And now it's like, well, is he a top 5 quarterback? Earning $50 million a year? You look at the stat line, it's not bad. 24-33, 283, a touch and a pick, 95.9 QB rating. But again, not making the plays when it matters and when it counts. You could say kind of the same thing about Daniel Jones, who would have good games, or at least on paper they look like good games, but like when it's crucial third down, crucial red zone, is he converting? Is he seeing the guy that would change the landscape of the game? Yeah, I mean, their second half. And so after that touchdown where they go take the lead 17-13 on the 4 consecutive tush pushes, that was 13 plays, 74 yards. They had that really awkward, weird, poorly managed drive at the end of the first half where they didn't get any points. They got to I think it was at midfield or in our territory, but we're not in field goal range, and they just needed like a completion to get in field goal range. Couldn't do it because Jake Elliott probably has the leg from long distance. Second half, punt, interception, fumble, 3 and out, 4 plays, 8 yards. So they must have got the first down on the first, whatever. 3 and out, So 3-play drive, 4-play drive, 3-play drive, 4-play drive, and then that long, once the game is 34-17, pretty much out of reach, they go on that longer drive that then ends in the defense came up big. We know the defense has to come up big for us to be competitive, and they have. And if this is the defense that we get moving forward, you got to feel really good about our chances. Special teams wise, Gillen had that kickoff fall short of the landing zone that gave the Eagles such great field position in the opener, which sucked. But he did punt twice and had 2 down inside the 20, so that's a net positive. McAtamaney missing an extra point, not great. And he just got signed to the active roster too, which means, are they going to now go back on that decision? I mean, what a way to reward your team after having faith in you is to miss an extra point. Yuck. So hopefully, it hasn't yet again. The kicker might come back to haunt us, but if this offense can continue to produce and convert in the red zone, maybe it won't be such a big detriment. So that's the Eagles game. Let's do a Broncos preview. So Sunday, October 19th, 2025, 4:00 game at Empower Field at Mile High. Vegas has the Broncos. Now, this is before the Broncos played the Jets this past week, because I was recording as the game was going on. Broncos ended up winning that game. Very low-scoring affair. Jets look like doo-doo, mostly because the Broncos D is that good. But so the line probably will move, but it's at currently 7.5. I would say take the Giants. I know people know better than to follow my advice when it comes to gambling, because I said smash the Eagles at 7 or 8 and smash the under, and it was over, and the Eagles, it was Giants money line. But I do think the Giants will cover the spread and possibly win outright. Again, I am easily swayed. I'm a sucker for momentum, and I think the Giants do play a very competitive game in Denver. Over-under is 41. Yeah, I still think you take the under there. I still think that Broncos defense is legit. Bo Nix, 114 of 176, over 1,100 yards and 8 touchdowns. Of course, that's before the Week 6 affair. Cortland Sutton is the top receiver, and J.K. Dobbins is their top running back with over 400 yards and 4 touchdowns and 77 carries. Last 5 matchups, we talked about that 2021 opener against Denver at MetLife when the Giants lost 27-13, looked ugly. We won the October 15, 2017 game in Denver. That's when we were all kinds of banged up and depleted roster. We didn't have anyone in that game, and Evan Engram and our run game led us to a victory. That was a wild game to win, and you thought, oh, we can do this against the good Broncos team in Denver. We should be able to right the ship and get back to winning and salvage the season. And nope, it just got real bad after that. 2013, we got our doors blown off. I think this was the season opener. This was Peyton Manning's unreal season when he threw 55 touchdowns and went to the Super Bowl at MetLife. We got our doors blown off there. That was the beginning of a very long, extended losing streak. We started the season, I think, 0-6 or 0-7. November, this was Thanksgiving 2009. We lost to the Broncos in Denver to Kyle Orton, I believe, 26-6. It was just not competitive whatsoever. And then you have that October 23rd, 2005 game at the old Giants Stadium, where the Giants, Eli had that great comeback towards the end to beat the Broncos in the final drive. That fadeaway pass to Monty Toomer in the end zone for the touchdown. That was so good. That's when you knew you had something in Elijah. The all-time series is tied at 7-7. So wild to go from the Eagles game, where it's we've legitimately played 200 games against each other. And the Eagles lead 98-86 or something like that. And then you go to this game, and it's we've played 14 games. It's all tied up. So in terms of points scored per game, even with that offensive outburst we had last week, we're still 25th. in scoring points per game. We are 20th in points allowed per game. We're getting better in that respect, I believe. And Denver's 18th in points scored per game, but second in points allowed per game, 16.8 points allowed per game. Takeaway differential, we're still in the negative, -3. Denver's also in the negative, -2. They're only 2 spots ahead of us in terms of takeaway differential, and that's because their defense, as stout and as strong as they are, they do not get turnovers. Passing yards per game, we're 18th in the league. Denver's 15th. Rushing yards per game, our offense is 11th, and the Broncos are 4th. So expect to see a lot of running in this game. I think what's going to end up happening, though, is that Denver will have success running the ball and we will not. And that's because they are 5th in defensive rushing yards allowed per game, and we are 23rd. Even though we showed a marked improvement against Philly, I do think Philly abandoned that run a little too prematurely. Denver's also got a great passing defense, 8th in defensive passing yards allowed per game. We're 25th, so it'll be a big game for our defense to step up and show us that they are not a bottom third of the league type unit. The Broncos don't have a ton of injuries, so nothing really to report there unless something happened during the Sunday morning game that I missed. They've played every game they have played has been close with the exception of the Bengals game, and that's because Jake Browning just refuses to throw to Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, and that's why they traded for Joe Flacco. And so Broncos opened the season with a 4:00 game, beating the Titans 20-12. Offense has like a little over 300 total yards. They do pile up 151 rushing yards, but they had 4 turnovers in that game. The defense was stout, only allowed 62 passing yards in that game. So the defense came up huge. 27.39 expected points contributed by the defense in that game. Yowza. They then go into the 4:00 game against the Colts in Indianapolis. And this is a game that they should have won. They lost by 1, 29-28. But if you remember, the Broncos ended up missing a field goal towards the end of that game that would have given them the lead. And then at the end, the Colts were attempting like a 60-something yard field goal. They kick it. They miss badly. But the Broncos are called for illegal leverage or whatever that's called, where the guy's trying to use a offensive player to gain an advantage or something like that. Which, if you're a coach, it's like special teams coach, you're like, don't do that. There's no need to do that. It's a 60-plus yard field goal. This guy is not going to make it. And so that gives the kicker another chance, and he makes it. So they probably should have won that game. Defense allowed a lot of 473 total yards in that game, 306 passing yards. The Daniel Jones. I think the offense had 15.48 expected points contributed, and the defense was minus 15.36. So a very uncharacteristic game for the Denver Broncos defense, and really the only really bad game they played. The next week against the Chargers, they lost 23-20. The offense only mustered 9 first downs in this game and 265 total yards. Defense gave up 29 first downs and almost 400 total yards, 270 through the air. But they did first 2 turnovers. So the defense, again, not a great game there, but not their worst game. So they're 2-2 going against the Bengals. The Bengals are, don't have Joe Burrow. Their defense is trash, and so they do run up the score there at 28-3. Offense put up over 500 yards of total offense, only gave away 1 turnover. Defense only allowed 9 first downs. So all around solid victory there on Monday night. And then they came into the Eagles game in Philadelphia, got down 17-3, came back in the 4th and won 21-17. Defense, not great, but came up big when it mattered down the stretch. And then they went to London to take down the Jets. I think the final score was 13-11. Yeah, very low-scoring affair. I know the broadcast team, Kurt Warner and Rich Eisen, were very down on the Jets. Like, you guys just cannot figure it out. Like, head-scratching decisions and maneuvers by the New York Football Jets. So the Broncos D comes up solid there. Broncos offense makes a play when it matters to get the win, but it wasn't decisive enough to the point where you're like, oh, the Broncos are a juggernaut. It was like when you barely beat a team that has not won a game this year by 2 points. So that's why I say that this could be a very winnable game for the Giants, because we have extended rest, a mini bye week, they like to call it. Got like 2 or 3 days extra rest. Broncos are now coming back from London, crossing multiple time zones, gonna have that jet lag. Not a great win. I don't know. It just feels like they're susceptible for a letdown at home. And of course, that being said, I just put the jinx on the Giants, and they'll get blown out. Seems like whenever I've reverse conned and jinxed this team more times than I've ever can admit or know. Like, the past 2 times that I've said we're gonna get our doors blown off, we've won twice and almost won a third time. So far, I've only really been right, in the Commanders game and the Chiefs game. The only 2 games that I got right. So what the fuck do I know? The Broncos offense, they're 12th in expected points contributed. They're like hovering around league average for most of the key stats. They're slightly above average. They're in that 10 to 16 range in terms of most rankings. They do have a lot of penalties called against them, and they're second most in the league in penalty yards. They're 25th in scoring percentage, 11th best in turnover percentage. So don't score a lot of touchdowns, but they do not turn the ball over. Kind of similar situation to the Eagles, but they have a better offense than the Eagles, which is wild to say out loud. Broncos offense is 24th in third down percentage, 28th in fourth down percentage, and 13th in red zone percentage. So those are 3 key statistics that I would hope would stand up when the Giants are on the field. Like, can't let them convert on third down or fourth down, and let's just try and keep them out of the red zone completely. That'd be great. Keep them outside the 20 and hold them to field goals, and I think we got ourselves a chance. The passing offense is 22nd in average yards per attempt, which is right around where we are. But they're 26th in yards per completion. Bo Nix has a below average QB rating, even though it's, you look at it and you say, that's not a bad rating. I think it's like in the mid to high 80s, which is pretty decent. League wide, it's below average. And then the passing offense is tied for second fewest sacks allowed, which is good enough for the second lowest sack percentage. And they have allowed the fewest sack yards. So this will be a big test for the Giants defense, who, we did get 3 sacks of Hurts in the Thursday night game where we won, but there were plenty of times where Hurts had a lot of time to survey the field and stand back there, and there was no one getting close. So again, I think the pass rush needs to step it up. This is going to be their biggest challenge yet. And let's see how they respond, but it's not looking good. So the Broncos passing offense is 13th in expected points contributed. So, they're slightly above average offense from a passing standpoint. And then the rushing offense is better. Top 5 in total rushing yards, 4th in rushing yards per attempt, 4th in rushing yards per game, 8th in rushing touchdowns. They're tied for the least amount of fumbles, but they're 20th in expected points contributed, which is really interesting. That doesn't seem to line up with what I just ran down for you. It's like, how the hell are you 20th in expected points contributed? But my assumption is once they do get into the red zone, are they just not punching it in via the ground attack? So this will be a huge test for our rush defense. Are they going to be able to bottle up J.K. Dobbins and not, get off the field on third down? Special teams wise, in terms of kickoff returns and punt returns for the Broncos, their punt return unit is 9th in yards per return. So that's something we got to keep an eye on. Hopefully Gillen can get some extra air time to allow our guys to get down there. They are also in 2nd in kickoff average. That'll be a test for our kickoff return unit. Are we able to get the same kind of productivity and returns that we've experienced so far we've had one of the better kickoff return units, but now we're going off against a pretty decent kickoff team. 15 punts downed inside the 20, which is most in the NFL. They have the second highest inside the 20 percentage when it comes to punts. So could be looking at, I don't know, seems like we're not going to have a lot of favorable starting positions to kick off drives for our offense, and playing, and it being an away game with a rowdy, raucous Broncos stadium, that could lead to a lot of trouble. So that's something that I would hope that Brian Daboll and Mike Kafka emphasize throughout this week of practice is like, okay, let's turn the decibels up and let's get used to communicating non-verbally, especially when we're down by the end zone. Broncos defense is tied for the fourth lowest yards per play. They have the second most penalties, which is interesting, and the third most first downs by penalties. So what does that indicate to me? That means, hey, let's continue to take shots down the field. Let's continue to, if we're seeing a man coverage look, let's make sure that we're attacking it, even if it looks covered. If you see the back of a Broncos defender's uniform, take the shot. Take the shot. Broncos D has the 9th lowest scoring percentage, but the 4th lowest turnover percentage. Don't allow a lot of touchdowns on most drives, but they're also not, a lot of the offensive drives are not resulting in turnovers. So it bodes well for our offense. It's just a matter of, is this going to be a field goal fest? Is this going to be what we saw this morning in London, where it's going to be a 13-10, 16-13 game? Very possible. Broncos D is the third most expected points contributed in the league. We mentioned the second lowest points per game. They have the third best third down percentage, the best fourth down percentage. They have not allowed a fourth down conversion thus far in this season. I don't think that changed against the Jets this morning. And they have the best red zone percentage, 4 conversions and 14 attempts. That definitely did not change against the Jets, because the Jets did not score a touchdown in the week 6 contest. They have the Broncos defense averages the second lowest time of possession per drive and the second fewest points per drive. So I hope you like 3 and outs, because it seems like this is going to be a field goal fest and a punt fest, which doesn't make for great TV, but hell, if it keeps it close towards the end, I'm a happy camper. The Broncos pass defense has the 7th most expected points contributed, tied for the second fewest passing touchdowns allowed and the second lowest touchdown percentage, the 4th lowest net yards per attempt, but they are tied for the highest average depth of target at 9.9 yards. So I'd imagine that you're not going to see, and they also have the second lowest completion percentage. So you're probably, the odds are, is Jackson Dart going to be able to put up a game this week against the Broncos like he did against the Eagles last week, or against the Chargers in week 4? It's probably going to trend more towards what his final stat line looked against the Saints. But if he is able to do and put up the numbers he did against the Eagles, doing that against Denver, oh my God, the hype train, dude. It's just like, everyone back up, because there's going to be a monumental mushroom cloud blast from the hype train. Yeah, so this is, this is a test. We went into that Eagles game being like, season over, which is like, we're not going to win. And, it's just going to be ugly, and this is where it all falls apart. And then you come out with a multi-score blowout win. It's just like, okay, this is the test. We failed the Saints test, with regards to keeping the momentum and taking the momentum into the next week and taking that into the following week. And now, can they carry that momentum into the following week? Or are we gonna or is this the trend for the Giants, where we get too high, we're like, we're going to the playoffs, and then we get way too low and way too high, way too low? Is that what this season's gonna be? Cool. They only have 1 interception on the year, which is kind of wild. They're tied for the second lowest interception percentage, but they're 5th in passes defended, 7th in yards per completion, and 8th in the lowest yards per game, 7th lowest QB rating, second most total blitzes, seventh highest blitz percentage, fourth most hurries, and fourth highest hurry percentage, most knockdowns and highest knockdown percentage, most sacks and highest sack percentage, most pressures and the highest pressure rate. So the offensive line is feeling themselves for the Giants, right? You have Jermaine Illuminor. He's posting like, how about that motherfucking O-line? It's like, all right, you guys have looked good. With Andrew Thomas 100% healthy and playing all the snaps, as a unit, you are performing better. Running game is looking better. Pass protection is better. Can it carry over into this game against a Broncos defense that is fucking tenacious, dude? This is the best defensive unit that we have faced. Like I keep mentioning, the Chargers are really good. The Chiefs are pretty good. Broncos are the best. So let's see how you stack up against what are the most formidable defenses in the league. In terms of rushing defense, they have the 9th most expected points contributed, 6th fewest total rushing yards allowed, 5th fewest rushing yards allowed per game, and they're tied for the fewest rushing touchdowns allowed in the league and the 2nd fewest first downs allowed. So this will be a test for Cam Skattebo. I imagine he's going to come out guns blazing, and he's going to be feeling himself, and he's going to try and set the tone. And what's going to happen once he runs into a wall over the first 2 to 3 or 4 drives? Like, is he going to still have that same drive himself? I don't doubt the man, but at the same time, it's figuring out when you've had success and you've made it look easy, or when you've had success. Okay, now how you're dealing with adversity. We saw how the team dealt with adversity with the rookies in place against the Saints, down by 12 in the 4th. Feels like they kind of folded. What are you going to do if you run into some issues against the Broncos where you're not scoring a touchdown on the opening drive and you're not scoring a touchdown on the second drive, or you're settling for field goals, or a missed field goal? So it's a big test. And then in terms of the defending the kick return and defending the punt return, the Broncos have the 4th highest yards allowed per kickoff return, and the kickers are perfect in field goal percentage and extra point percentage against the Broncos. I'm here to say I think McAtominay is going to miss a field goal or 2, might miss an extra point, so that they won't be perfect after this week. And then I think this is where your average start of possession, start of drive, field position, the Giants can really, this is where they can have an advantage. Because if you can get Gunnar Olszewski and even Deonte Banks or whoever else is returning with Olszewski to get us to our own 40, our own 45, or even in a Broncos territory, you're at least, keeping yourself in the game. So, final prediction for the Giants-Broncos game. I really do think that we can come away with a win. And my God, it would be huge to go in there and get a dub. It's just hard to see with this Broncos defense, man. They're just so good. But we have been moving the ball with Jackson Dart as the quarterback. I mean, we were moving the ball against the Chargers and putting up points, moving the ball against the Saints. It's just not putting up points because we're turning the ball over. If you can not turn the ball over, which it doesn't sound like we will, you stay in the game. It's just a matter of like those big third downs and in the red zone. I say I mean, I think it's going to be close. I think that's why I said take the Giants on the plus 7.5, because I do think that we'll keep it within a touchdown or less. And I see us either winning by a field goal or losing by a field goal. And knowing my history, with that being said, we're probably going to get blown out. But the hope there is that if you don't come away with the upset victory by a field goal, maybe you lose by a field goal, and no such thing as moral victories. I get it, but you still have to feel good going into Philly the following week against an Eagle team that you really dominated in that first outing, first go round. So, all right, that's the episode. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll talk to you next time. Adios, muchachos.